Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Chamber Chat. We have now launched season 4. Welcome again. Thanks again for joining to this Facebook Live. My name is Bill Vitiello. I am the Institutional and Business Development Manager for the Victory Bank. It's such a pleasure to host these because we wind up having guests that I've had on before and then also get a chance to meet new people. But again, thank you so much for joining. Before we begin, do want to mention some other thank yous to Drew Griffin from Delicious Marketing. Drew is doing all the behind the scenes today for this Facebook Live. Absolutely cannot do this without him. So thank you very much. We also like to thank Tim Hillard and the Ben Exchange, your friends for business benefits. And then also we'd like to thank Danielle and Eileen at the Chamber. They are doing a lot of the scheduling and continuing to help motivate pushing this forward. So if you are a small business owner, this is going to be a great video for you to watch today. So thank you once again for being a part of it. My guest today has actually been on the podcast before, but was really thrilled when he reached out and said, look, we have a little bit more of a timely item we need to talk about, and that is PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program, launched by the SBA at the beginning of this COVID situation. So please help me welcome from Kreischer Miller, Tom Yankanich. Tom, welcome to Chamber Chat Live. How are you?
Good. How you doing, Bill? Thanks for having me back.
No, again, thank you for reaching out because this really is a timely issue. I know we're going through it at the Victory Bank. We talk to so many customers. We talk to one another as employees. And we all still have a lot of questions about it, but there's also a lot that we're still getting through. So I know you've been helping a lot of small business customers over the last 6 months or so. So maybe just kind of paint a picture of what it's been like for you and your team to navigate small business owners through this, please.
Sure. I mean, prior to PPP loan, we were talking to several of our clients because everybody's wondering, what's next? What should we be planning for? And then I believe it was March 27th, the PPP loan was enacted. And I remember that whole weekend, myself and a lot of my colleagues were really digging into all of that, trying to figure out what, the PPP loan looked like and loan forgiveness would, really entail. So we spent a lot of time there and meeting internally, and we start putting out some content as far as webinars were concerned. Really the beginning of it was, just an understanding of what was being offered. Then it got into the loan forgiveness application, so on and so on with loan forgiveness and a lot of other items. I think, one of the things we were doing with our clients early on is they heard the term that everybody was worried the cash was going to run out. I'm sure you heard the same thing. You were getting calls. Yeah. And we were helping our clients early on with, just getting the application together, trying to figure out, what they needed to build up internally to maintain and also submit when they were going after the loan money itself. Now we sort of reached a time period where there's new things coming out every day. Like I believe you mentioned, there's new information coming out, and we're getting to the time period where people are thinking about loan forgiveness and what that might look like. So we're working with a lot of our clients on strategizing the 8 versus 24 weeks. What should they think about as far as qualified cost buildup? You're able to use payroll costs and other costs, and really it's come down to, okay, what should that look like for me, and how many weeks should I utilize?
Yeah, all good points, and we're going to dive into some of those. And I can tell you, as a small business owner, my message to the small business owners, having people like Tom and a company like his, or even somebody similar, is really, really critical for your business. Now, it's not every day a pandemic's going to come along, but I can tell you from dealing with a lot of customers that we dealt with at the Victory Bank, those who had help from people like Tom, their application process and the forgiveness process are going much smoother than those who do not have that type of assistance. And now I realize financially, a lot of small businesses may not be able to afford that, but I would encourage you to at least have a conversation with somebody to see what your budget can afford, because we're going to be continuing to navigate these waters together. And it's going to be a lot better for you as a business owner to concentrate on your business rather than concentrating on this. We need to get the businesses back up and running again. So let the professionals concentrate in helping you support with the PPP. You concentrate on running the ins and outs of your businesses. So tell me about how you guys have been working with some of your clients during this whole process.
It really started, like I mentioned, with the loan application process itself. There was a lot of phone calls that clients had asked us to look at the application to see if we saw anything that they may have missed. And early on, it was can you help us with cash flow projections? Things like that. Internally, what does our business look like during these times? With and without the money. Or modeling out your best strategies for forgiveness. I mentioned that you have the 8 versus 24 weeks. The Flexibility Act that came out subsequent to the CARES Act, it allowed for, instead of just using the 8 weeks, you're now able to use 24 weeks, which has been really beneficial for small businesses. It's going to give them a tool to help them, reach full forgiveness. And it gives you it's switched it. Previously, it was 70% payroll cost was the requirement. That was the minimum. And now it's 60% payroll cost. So there are other costs that can be used, non-payroll costs. So our clients has really been trying to model that up, and we've been helping them with that. In addition, there's certain certifications that were made on the loan application. If you're not safe harbored and your loan's over $2 million, we've been really talking with our clients about, okay, how do you support those certifications when they're going to be questioned down the line, as far as by the SBA. So some of the things that we've been doing is we've been helping clients build out a timeline there, and it's discussions they were having internally. It's really just putting it in timeline form.
Tom, for a small business who's trying to decide for forgiveness under the 8 or 24 week, and maybe just simply don't understand it, can you explain it a little bit and why they might want to take advantage of the 8 versus the 24, or vice versa?
Sure. So 8 weeks was the original covered period that was allowed under the PPP loan. And what happened was the Flexibility Act allowed for 24 weeks to be the alternate. So if you were, if your loan was received after June 5th, you were automatically going to be using the 24 weeks, but before you had the option. So I'd say the majority of my clients are using the 24 weeks because if you think about it, the application that was filled out, it was filled out for 2.5. It was based off of 2.5 months of payroll. So if you're able to maximize costs over 24 weeks, it's going to far exceed that 2.5 months over payroll. I don't have many clients sticking with the 8 weeks. I have 1 or 2 that are doing it because they're hoping they wanted to get everything submitted early, in hopes about hearing forgiveness. Because the overall timeline, once you submit and everything's been accepted, first it reaches the bank and the bank reviews the application and they have up to 60 days, and then the bank then will pass it along to the SBA and they have 90 days. So there's a max 150-day process. And that's the max. It could be shorter. I've had a few clients hear back from the bank already. But I really suggest using the 24 weeks just because you're going to be able to maximize forgiveness.
Yeah, and we're honestly getting a mix of those customers who had chosen the 8 weeks. They just want to get it done and over with. Their applications have been submitted along with supporting documentation. And again, there's nothing wrong with that. As a bank, we're happy to process it. We actually would probably prefer to work ahead a little bit. We have such a volume of applications that we knew at the beginning it was like, taking the actual application for the PPP. We could face a similar volume on the back end as well, with everybody trying to get forgiveness. So it's one of those things where if you identify that you want to do 8 weeks, please submit it to your financial institution, and start there. There also has been discussion, and maybe you can speak to this a little bit. Then again, my statement might satisfy it, but there has been discussion that instead of submitting an application for forgiveness, that maybe there's some sort of affidavit or some kind of sign off that any loan amounts below 150,000 would essentially just require a signature on good faith that you use the funds for its intended purpose. Tell me what you're hearing on that so far.
Yeah, so that's a great point. I was going to mention that as well. We have heard, I'd say the past week or so, I've heard that come out where if your loan is under 150,000, you would sign off, and it sort of streamlines the process. And then that sort of goes back to some of the businesses we're working with. They're waiting, and they may choose 8 weeks because even if you wait, you can choose the 8 weeks if you'd like to. But more and more information just keeps on coming out there. I spoke to somebody from the SBA over this weekend, and they had told me that they were expecting some new news to come out today. I was hoping it was going to be right before our talk, so I could have some breaking news, but nothing.
Breaking news, right?
Yeah, it didn't come out yet. But I heard Monday there was supposed to be something released related to forgiveness, and that could be one of those items. But as of right now, nothing's been finalized there. But there has been new things coming out all the time.
Yeah, and I think, as banks, we have been advocating for everyone to push that through, just as a separate piece. I mean, if they can't come to an agreement on a stimulus package, the next one, whatever that looks like, we have been advocating just to push that particular piece through. Again, I think that's just going to be easier for everybody, to be able to get it through and get it behind us. And then if there's a new stimulus package, maybe we deal with another, process or what have you. Tom, tell me about some of the clients that you work with. I know, look, you guys are, a larger, a firm, but you have a very individual touch type of process, if for lack of a better description. But kind of tell me some of the customers that you work with, if you don't mind.
Yeah, so very, very broad range. Broad range. If you're just looking at revenue, I have clients that are anywhere from, $2 million to I have $1 billion client. But I think that our range of what's norm for us is that say probably 20 to maybe $60 million client. But I mean, with all of our clients, one of the things we've been trying to do, and it's been nice for streaming services like this and Microsoft Teams and Citrix, is just have these meetings. I'm used to Microsoft Teams where we're having 5-6 meetings a day, and we like to have those touch points with our clients, especially during these times. There's questions that pop up all the time. I mean, as we mentioned, there's new information on the PPP loan, but we're used to having quarterly meetings with our clients where we're going out there and see what's going on with their business, and that's the best way to do it right now.
Yeah, and you said you got.
Oh, good. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, you guys had said you were doing webinars, obviously educating people on the PPP. Are you continuing to do them, and what do you see forthcoming for webinars?
So the last one that we had done them all throughout the process. It was, you could on our website, we have it's a coronavirus sort of task force website where we have a lot of resources, articles that were written. We really covered from the beginning, what was in the CARES Act, what to think about. Loan application process itself, and then with every change I would get an email on like a Saturday night, hey, we need to put something together to get out to our clients Monday or Tuesday, because there were so many changes. So there's a lot of webinars out there. I think the most recent related to the certifications made, because we were getting a lot of questions from clients of, okay, well, I made these certifications with my loan application. What should I maintain internally? I know the types of things that I went through as a business, and I have some of the stuff documented, but how do I build that up? So that was a recent webinar as well.
Yeah, and I give you companies like yours credit for putting the webinars out there. There's some organizations that might say, if a customer has a question, they might say, well, you have to be a customer of ours in order to get this knowledge. But I think during the time of COVID, when people need it the most, and you guys are an authority in what is happening right now, for you to put that information out there, I think just speaks to, you individually, and then your company's culture as well, where, look, we're all in this together, right? And we all want to get through it together. So, it's one of those things where you're providing that complimentary. And again, I just think that speaks to your character and your company's character.
Yeah, it's interesting, Bill. When we started the process, we had done webinars before, and we do a lot of, as a firm, we have what's called a Center for Private Company Excellence, and we do a lot of in-person seminars on various topics. And we started the webinars because we were sort of forced into it, just with the current environment. And I'd say the very first one we did, we typically were used to our seminars. We fill a room of anywhere from 50 to 100 people. But the webinars were offered to everybody, not just clients. And we had around sometimes 500 people on those webinars, and it was just, the topic was important.
Yeah, that's incredible. I want to dive in, and I hope neither one of us are really going to share our screen here. Can we talk about the forgiveness application itself? I'm sure you've seen it.
Yes.
You're familiar with it. So can you talk to some of the areas that some business owners might be getting tripped up on? I mean, I could give you examples myself, but I want to hear from somebody else to see whether they're going through the same thing. And I'm hoping that this helps business owners submit their application accurately so it can get processed much quicker through your financial institution and ultimately the SBA. So maybe start from the top down on that application. And
so the first thing I'd say, just to point out, is for small businesses out there, if you maintained payroll, there were no FTE reductions, through your covered period. One of the first things you should look at is the EZ form. It's a simpler approach there's a few more certifications on that form, but just going down step for step to the certifications, you'll know if you qualify. And a big piece of that is if there were FTE reductions or any salary decreases. So I think that's the first step, because the application itself, as you mentioned, it could be voluminous, it could be scary because of all the schedules that are associated with it and all the line items. So if you're eligible, I'd take a look at that to see if you could use the EZ form, because it'll save you a bunch of time. As far as the application itself, there's a lot there, right? I mean, where you're going through and you're evaluating, what are your payroll costs look like, your non-payroll costs that you're going to include. You have to account for any FTE reductions, because if you had FTE reductions, a quotient is formed, and that quotient will reduce your loan forgiveness. That's a piece of it as well. You have to evaluate who's an owner. That's one of the things that recently actually came out was the definition at the end of August. The definition of an owner changed. It became for C corps and S corps. If you were less than 5% owner of the company, you're not an owner. And where that became important is that there's certain compensation caps for owners that don't exist for other employees. So that was important. So there's a section when you're filling out all your payroll that you have to be aware of that. A big one that came out when you're building up your non-payroll costs for your application is related party rent. So if you're the only owner of a business and you're paying and you have an LLC that owns the building and you're paying yourself rent, that rent itself cannot be included in your application. What you're going to have to do is you can take the mortgage interest on that building that you pay. That can be a piece of it, but that affected a lot of our clients, just because if you think that's a situation a lot that the owner may own the building in an LLC. And so you basically pulled out all those rent payments that were being made that were included in those non-payroll costs. And we were getting questions from clients, how are we going to make up for that? Where does that come from? And really the answer there is you can extend out over the 24 weeks. And I talked to a lot of lenders and also just people with the SBA, and they were saying they could see a lot of clients, just to make it simple, shift over and make it a great deal of it payroll, because tying out the payroll reports that we're getting from the third party providers and what's available there, it's been pretty simple for banks when they're reviewing.
You see, guys, you see where it gets a little complicated, why you need somebody like Tom. He's talking all kinds of gibberish over there. For some of you may be familiar, others it may not. So that's why
I don't have the application up, and I'm already just picking stuff off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, you're right. And here's the thing, right? So you're providing knowledge about this application and what you've come across, but here's the reality: everybody's different.
Yes.
Every single scenario is different. I haven't come across two businesses that are alike in the way that they're running through this PPP, right?
Yeah. I received a call last week. It was on Friday, and they wanted us. They left me a voicemail, and they just wanted. They were small business. I found out their loan was smaller. It was about $30,000, and they just said, "Hey, can I just? I don't work with them at all." They said, "Can I just pick your brain for a half hour?" And I said, "Absolutely." I mean, we'll be able to run through those answers pretty quickly on some common questions. But as you mentioned, every client's different, every company's different, and they have different resources to help them put these things together. So we're just trying to be there to help them out through that process.
Yeah. Well, we've just had we scratched the tip of the iceberg here. So is there anything else that you want to offer on the PPP before we go? Again, I know this could probably be an hour. You have somebody from an accounting and you have somebody in banking, and we probably could flood you with information. But we do want to encourage you to reach out to Tom. Is there anything else you want to share before we go, Tom?
I would just say, keep in touch with, your trusted advisors, your lenders. Keep in touch with them as you have questions. Feel free to reach out. And your CPAs, they're really going to be helpful in guiding you through if you have questions for modeling out the different scenarios, what to think of from a certification standpoint. And if you need somebody to review your application, I mean, your loan forgiveness application, we've helped numerous clients through that process. I have a few clients, as I mentioned, that have gone through and they've been pushed along through their lender, and they're now with the SBA. But yeah, I just say keep in contact with your trusted advisors.
Yeah, I would totally agree. There's people who we keep in touch with on the regular, and it was so much easier to process their application. And again, even through normal course of business, even if you don't necessarily have anything really hard to talk about, your lenders always enjoy talking with you, seeing how the business is going. That familiarizes themselves a little bit better with your business. Again, they've gone through that process if you've gone through any type of maybe account opening or lending, but it's really critical to stay in touch. I heard so many stories about people who have large relationships with some of these financial institutions, and they had a difficult time just at least getting a call back and had no idea what was going on. So you really need to build your relationship with your local bank, or at least a local banker who can navigate you through that process. So just a few moments ago there on your screen, you saw that we pulled up your website there, and right on the front is the coronavirus information portal there.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit on there. So go ahead.
Yeah, several articles and webinars. On demand, you can click those webinars anytime you'd like to look through them. Again, it's sort of you can sort of follow a timeline there. Some of those webinars we would start off with saying, okay, well, we need to make you aware of these changes because something new came out. So
that's great. Tom, where can people get a hold of you if they'd like to contact you or had some additional questions off of this Facebook Live?
My work contact is 215-441-4600, extension 269. And then my email address, which I have up all day, is tyankanich@kmco.com. And then also there, on our website, there's a direct link to our emails if anybody has any questions.
Yep. And we're also going to put that information down in the episode notes as well. So I want to thank you for coming on today. You've been a great help to the local business owners. You've been great to volunteer your time with Chamber Chat. So we greatly appreciate you being a guest today. I'm going to ask you to hang on for just a moment and stay tuned right now for networking tips. So at the end of each one of these episodes, I like to provide a networking tip that maybe can help you since you are a member of the Chamber and viewing this. And if you're not a member of the Chamber, you should consider being a member for value like this. So one of the things that I like to do and things that I've seen in the past with any type of networking, it could be online, it could be in person, is to develop your own brand, right? So what do I mean by that? And I could probably, there's half hour, 45-minute, hour long webinar, but take a look and maybe, take a look at yourself, do a little bit of brainstorming, maybe shoot some ideas off of somebody else who might be in your network. What would be something that you could brand from yourself? So is it a smile during a networking event or a Zoom event? Is it something that you're wearing? Is it a pin maybe you put on your lapel? Is it a certain tie that you wear? And then also the phrases, the words, and how you present yourself is really important. I personally have a brand that I use when I project myself to you folks. Yeah, you obviously see the Victory Bank logo. I'd like to have a big smile. But that's how I am as personally, as a personality. I'm very warm, and I invite people to have that conversation with me. I also have a personal brand over electronic communication, email, for instance. I'm usually a little bit more on the formal side. I don't like to be informal because I'm not informal in real life. I respect the people that I talk to and find value in our conversation, and I want to be able to project that. Sometimes I have friends that make comments that, I'm overly formal with, I might give a salutation of regards or all my best. And you know what? I truly mean it. And that's what I've identified as my personal brand. So hopefully you take something from that and maybe begin to develop your own personal brand and be consistent about it. This way people will recognize you when they come to events, and they'll come to be familiar with your consistency and how you present yourself. So that's my networking tip for this week. You got that, Tom?
I got it.
You all set? All right. If I remember the last time we were together, you were dressing pretty sharp there. You had a pretty fly blazer on.
You gave me a lot of credit on that. I on the Facebook Live. I think that was one of the first Facebook Lives. So you were glad that you were able to see the get up.
Absolutely. And that's exactly why I mention it, because it's one of those things where that's one of the first things that I noticed about you is that you took enough pride in yourself and what you do. And you dressed accordingly for it. So even though it was audio and nobody could see you, greatly appreciate the fact that you did that. So I remember that. See, personal branding. It's all about it. So. All right, good. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in today. This has been Chamber Chat, our Facebook Live. We are now into season 4. We have so many more guests waiting for you and to provide value to your membership. If you're not a member of the Chamber, please contact us today at podcast@TriCountyAreaChamber.com. If you are a member of the Chamber and would like to be on Facebook Live, the Chamber Chat, please email us also at podcast@TriCountyAreaChamber.com. Thanks again for tuning in. Until we connect again, all my best. Bye for now.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, everyone.